Hello again and welcome back to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio. I'm Dave and today I want to talk a little bit about learning scales. Something that I've seen, like a trap that I've seen students fall into, and I've talked to other guitar teachers and they've related similar experiences with some of their students, so it's not uncommon, so it's kind of something to make you aware of so you can kind of avoid the same problem. And what tends to happen is people will learn guitar and they get a reasonable amount of dexterity, so they develop the basic motor skills, how to pick, how to fret, and typically will learn a scale like the minor pentatonic or the minor blues. Get familiar with that scale. Maybe master one or two different scale boxes for it, and they've started to bond with the scale and playing it, and it all sounds quite natural. Then develop a bit of an interest in music theory and think, well, what notes am I playing? Why are the notes that I'm playing right? What other scales are there? And the natural sort of progression from there is to start learning other scales and typically learning modes. And this is often where the problem kind of sets in. That you've got a scale that you're already familiar with, something like the minor pentatonic, then you come to learn a mode or some other scale, and you just kind of take that as a thing in its own right, and it's like you abandon stuff that you already know, and it sets you back because it's almost like you're relearning stuff that you already know, and what you play just doesn't sound as natural because it's like artificially everything is new, but actually a lot of what you're playing is stuff that you already know. You just possibly haven't kind of contextualized it. So I'll show you what I mean. Let's say that you're learning the Dorian mode. The natural sort of thing to do is you learn the formula for the mode, and then you'll use a tool like PhatPhish. You'll say, okay, show me where the Dorian mode is on the neck. You'll find scale boxes, and you'll just basically let your fingers get familiar with the way that scale's played. So play the basic scale through. Once you're basically familiar with how to play the scale, you can start looking for exercises based around that, like playing just 1, 2, 3 type of patterns. So on, or playing alternate notes. And so on. So you can do that ascending or you can do that descending. And doing that sort of thing is great for sort of like committing the shape of the scale boxes into your muscle memory, and so being able to visualize the scale on the fingerboard and being able to find it quite readily. But you need to be able to put it into practice and actually use the scale for playing lead lines. Using it in practice. So you can sit down and then start trying to pick out little melody lines just using the scale boxes, or you can record or use a looper, record some backing chords or chord vamps and then playing over the top. But where I've seen people kind of cause problems for themselves is they'll approach the scale like a brand new thing, and there's actually a lot more sort of familiar territory here than you might realise. So let's use the Dorian mode as an example and look at the notes that we've got in that scale. We've got a 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, a flat 7, and the octave. So the 7 notes in that scale, 5 of them actually belong to the minor pentatonic as well. The 1, the flat 3, the 4, 5, and the flat 7 all belong to the minor pentatonic. It's just the 2nd and the 6th that don't. So if you're already familiar with the minor pentatonic and you've been playing that for a while, you're used to coming up with nice natural sounding patterns based on that. Don't throw that away, build on it, and start introducing notes, the additional notes from the scale or the mode that you're learning, and introduce those into the minor pentatonic. So if you think of your pentatonic as being like a skeleton, and then adding in notes from the mode. So adding in the sound, the flavour of the mode that you're learning to enhance the sound of the pentatonic. And depending on how many pentatonic notes that you use compared to how many non-pentatonic notes that you use, it determines how more or how little of the modal tonality that you get. So if you could play something just using just minor pentatonic notes, or you could play something with minor pentatonic and just adding in the odd non-pentatonic note from the mode just to give it a bit more interest. Or if you emphasise either the second degree or the sixth degree a little bit more, you're moving away from the pure pentatonic tonality and getting something that sounds a little bit more modal. And why it's important to think of it like this is that if you learn the minor pentatonic or the minor blues and then park that and then say learn the Dorian mode and you almost start again from scratch, it'll sound stilted, it won't sound as natural. It's almost like, I suppose it's like if you think when you first meet somebody, you meet a new person, you're a little bit more formal with them, you're not as relaxed, and then as you get to know them, your manner with them changes, the interaction with them feels a lot more natural. It's almost like every time you pick up a new scale, it's like learning a new person. You're going back to this period of formality where it's a little bit stilted. It doesn't feel, it's not as natural. But if you build on the stuff that you already know, the minor pentatonic, you can keep the natural sounding stuff that you can do. It feels more organic. You kind of get more feeling into it because it's something that you already know, and then build on that by adding in the modal tones. So you can use the minor pentatonic as your starting point for any of the minor modes, like the Dorian, the Phrygian, or the Aeolian mode, or the natural minor. And if you already know the major pentatonic, you can use that as a skeleton, as a basic starting point, and then add in the extra notes for the Ionian mode, the Lydian mode, or the Mixolydian mode. Rather than saying, right, I'm going to learn a mode, here's 7 new notes that I need to get familiar with and learn patterns and ideas. You're not. You're starting with something familiar and then just adding to it. So everything you're doing is kind of building on what you already know. It saves a lot of time, and it just you will kind of, it's easier to keep the natural sound of what you do. It's a very common criticism of people who take a very scale based approach to learning guitar. It often sounds like what they're playing is running through exercises because they've sat down and they've learned a scale and they've played exercises, and that's how they got familiar with it, and never get into that zone where it sounds like they're making music rather than playing the scale. It's difficult to describe, but I think you'll know what I mean by that. Is where it sounds like it's a natural piece of music rather than somebody sitting and picking notes out of the scale, but just playing more from the heart rather than playing from the head. So use PhatPhish as a tool to help you. There's a link in the information section down there if you haven't got a copy of it already. I wrote it and developed it as a tool for this purpose, to help you visualize where notes are, different scales on the neck, and different tunings and all that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's just a study aid. It's not the be all end all. What you should be working towards is being able to play something that sounds natural and pleasing and musical. And if you've got something that you can already play that sounds natural and pleasing and musical, like a good familiarity with the pentatonic, then add to that to give you something that sounds natural and pleasing and musical, using modes or other scales or whatever. Okay, so there's something for you to think about. If you enjoyed that and found it useful, please click like. If you really enjoyed it, please click subscribe or leave a comment, all the different options that YouTube gives you down there. As always, if you've got a question, it's probably better to ask it direct by going here rather than leaving it in the YouTube comments section, because YouTube comments do seem to get lost sometimes. But if you've got a question or suggestion for a future video, something you want me to cover, then submit it through that form and I'll try and get around to answering it in a future video. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.